Hola y bienvenido a otro video. Bueno, en este video vamos a aprender sobre los superlativos en español. Entonces, podemos comenzar. ¿Qué son los superlativos? In Spanish, we use the superlative to express that someone or something has a quality to the highest or to the lowest degree compared to a group. So when we talk about the comparative form in the previous video, we looked at the comparison between two things or two people. The superlative is a comparison, but it's distinguishing or it's highlighting or pinpointing one person who has the highest degree or the highest quality in comparison to others or in a group of to a group then. So we have relative superlative and absolute superlative. The relative superlative uses a structure. Now, this is very simple, and just like the comparative form, where there's a structure to learn of, this also has a comparative, rather a superlative structure. So, one thing to note is that we don't have a suffix that attach that will be the same as est in English, right? So we don't have that est like biggest or smallest. So we have to follow the structure. The absolute superlative, there is a suffix, but I will not advise you to look at it as if it's est because then you may apply that out of context. By adding that suffix, which is isimo or isima or isimos or isimas, obviously it can change depending on the noun that you are describing. It elevates the quality. It tells us that this is extremely or it's super or very. So it creates a sort of intense quality. So it expresses this intense quality without making a comparison. So you're pinpointing something or someone, but you are not comparing. So let's look at the relative superlative and the structure. So for the superity, which is the most, we look at the structure definite article, mass adjective, de. So the definite articles would be a, la, los, or las, depending on the noun, of course. Then you have mass, then you have the adjective, and the adjective will always change to agree with the noun, and then de. So for example, Juan es el más alto de la clase. Juan is the tallest in the class. So here you're seeing el más alto. We're using el because Juan is a boy, right? Más from the structure, and then alto, it remains in the masculine singular form de la clase. El coche azul es el más rápido de todos, so the blue car is the fastest of all. Esta casa es la más grande del barrio. And then we have ella es la más inteligente de su familia. So she is the smartest in her family. Now you see that when we're talking about a feminine noun, casa, it changes to la, and of course, for girl, la. Now, the adjective there, grande and inteligente, are neutral adjectives. So you didn't really see a change in gender. But if we were to substitute that, let's say we wanted to change grande to bonito to describe how beautiful the house is. We could say, esta casa es la más bonita del barrio. So this house is the most beautiful house in the neighborhood. Another thing to take note of here, you notice that the English translation is in la clase, sorry, in the class, the English that is, the fastest of all. Then you're seeing in the neighborhood and then in the family or in her family. But you notice the Spanish is de la clase and not in la clase. The reason for this is because the structure requires de. It is the fastest of all. It is the most beautiful of all. Think of it like that. But in English, we would say in. So notice that we are not literally translating. You need to follow the structure here. Moving on now to the next one, inferiority, which is expressing the least or something, is the smallest. It has that quality. We use the same structure except we change más to menos. That would mean least. For example, Pedro es el menos alto de los hermanos. So Pedro is the least tall of the brothers. La tortuga es la menos rápida del grupo. The tortoise is the least fast of the group. And you are seeing here again where the adjective changes and of course the article changes. So el menos alto, la menos rápida. Mi coche es el menos moderno de la empresa. My car is the least modern in the company. Then you're seeing el café frío es el menos vendido de la cafetería. So you're seeing cold coffee is the least sold in the coffee shop. Again, everything agrees with gender and number. If we were to continue, we're going to look at the irregulars. And we met these irregulars when we looked at the comparative, which is mejor y peor. So the only difference here is that the articles must be used. El chocolate es el mejor sabor de todos. So chocolate is the best flavor. And it makes sense because el o la is like literally saying the. It is the best. Remember, we don't have, or we don't say good, good, goodest, right? So it's good, better, and best. So that's why we get mejor. And then of course for worst, we do it's bad, worse, and worst. So here you're seeing el o la peor, which can obviously change into the plural form, mejores o peores. For example, again, esta película es la peor de la saga. So this movie is the worst of the saga. Tus notas son las mejores de la clase. So your grades are the best in class. And here you're seeing an example with the plural and of course plural feminine, las mejores. So why is it las mejores? Notice that mejores is not changing, right? So we don't have a feminine version, neither peor. What will tell us if it's a feminine or masculine noun? It's the article. So el peor, la peor, or el mayor, la mayor. And of course, if it changes, los mayores, mejores, la mejores, el peores, or la peores. So I hope that that helps. Now we're going to move on to the other irregular, which we spoke about in terms of mayor y menor. So you can literally interpret this as oldest and youngest. Mi hermano es el mayor de nosotros. My brother is the oldest of us. And soy la menor de tres hermanas. I am the youngest of the three sisters. So this is quite clear, mayor, and this is how it's used again. El or la with mayor or menor. And of course, mayores, menores. Now let's talk about the superlative in its absolute form. So like I said, the absolute form creates this intensity. And it's very simple actually. You're attaching isimo, which can change to isima, isimos, or isimas. So let's look at some of the rules and we will see the explanation, right? So the first rule is that if it ends in a vowel, we drop the final vowel and we add isimo. For example, carro, we get carissimo. Of course, that can change depending on the noun. If it ends in a consonant, you keep the final, or you keep the word intact rather, and you just simply add isimo. For example, we have difícil. Notice that is difícil, so it becomes dificilísimo. Notice the accent move, we'll discuss that. Now, moving on, if it has, or if the word rather ends in co or ca, that changes to QU and then we add the isimo. For example, rico, you get riquísimo or riquísima. If it ends in GO or GA, you change that to GU and then you add the ending. So largo, you get larguísimo. And if it ends in Z, you change it to C. And from feliz, you get felicissimo. Now, let's go on to the rules in terms of accent changes and vowels. Now, vowel adjustments. Specific word patterns undergo unique sound alterations. So we have BLE and that changes to bellissimo. So if you have an adjective like amable, it becomes amabilissimo. So putting it together, amabilissimo. Now we have stress io and io. when this happens, we drop the I or the O. For example, frío becomes friísimo, friísimo, friísimo. The golden rule now, which I spoke about in terms of the accent. So generally, for words where they are classified as esdrújula, these words require the accent on the third last vowel. So because we are attaching this suffix, the isimo, we will have to remove the accent from where it was originally placed rather. So words that already have an accent like fácil or we met difícil, we're going to move the accent from the A and put it on the I. So it maintains this rule, right? This um, spelling rule. So you would see that the accent is moved, and like I said, the rule for that is the third to last. In the third to last syllable, the vowel there, or the third to last vowel, it becomes accentuated. Sometimes you can look at it as just simply dropping that accent, and of course, the isimo already have the accent, so it's maintained and it follows the rules. All right, so we have that. So these are the two rules in terms of vowel adjustments and the accent rules. So just to review, for most, we use el, la, los, o las plus más plus adjective plus de. For least, el, la, los, las menos, then the adjective de. And of course, best to worst, el, la, los, las mejor, mejores, peor, peores, de. Then, of course, the absolute is the isimo, which can be isimo, isima, isimos, or isimas, extremely or super. All right, so this is just a review of everything that I taught, and I do hope that you understand this. You would notice that we have some examples here as well. And if you pause, you would have seen that el examen fue dificilísimo, la comida está buenísima, mis compañeros son simpaticísimos, las casas son carísimas. Okay, so I do hope that this helps you to understand the superlative form. And if you do have any questions, you can put it in the comments below and I will get to them. Until our next video, adios, ciao.